records of service. Today we are starting off our adventure of game overs, bad endings, and unrequited love with the snake of the hour, Sanan. My A button is still broken, so I'm sorry in advance if we have to go back a couple of times because it's a button that's very sensitive at the moment. Let's go. Sanan, Chapter 1. Of course, we want low romance and high corruption. That is your recipe. Let's go. It's also very hot outside, so the air may be on the entire stream. Skip button. Go. I really need to figure out how does one get the artwork for this game. How do I get the sprites? I need the sprites. I have zero clue about ripping games. Anyway, we could rid Furies of Bloodlust. We'd be able to remove the symptoms of bloodlust completely.
もちろんうまくいけばの話にはなりますけどね。我々羅刹の最大の欠点は定期的に襲ってくる吸血衝動のせいで理性がなくなってしまうこと。それがなくなれば今よりもずっと新選組の役に立てるかもしれません。
And now the skip button again. As we should know by now, make him endure it is the game over option, apparently. Whereas the give him blood is the one to survive. What should I do? I was panicked, shifting my eyes back and forth as sweat poured down my forehead. Sanan-san forced a smile with gritted teeth to comfort me.
そんな顔をしなくても大丈夫。今まで何度この衝動に耐えてきたと思っているんですか。だから今回も
My heart was ready to burst from my chest. Sanan-san clawed frantically at his skin, writhing and grunting in agony as I hugged him tightly from behind.
雪村。
I know it's not much, but this is all I can do for you right now. Everything's okay. Everything will be okay. I patted him softly on the back as his entire body flexed in extreme pain. As he grimaced uncomfortably in my arms, I kept my arms around his ribcage, careful not to aggravate him. I may have been slightly out of view from him, but I hoped that my warmth could serve him somehow. Skip button! As Sanan-san's pressure on me mounted, I said, "Nothing." I found myself at a loss for words, which I feared Sanan-san would interpret as a sign of guilt. Even so, watching his eyes thin from sadness was a sight I could no longer stomach, so I began frantically saying whatever came to mind. Oh no. That's the worst thing you could do. May I assist you in your rounds? You know, that way I could be a witness of sorts and prove your innocence.
仮に私が犯人だったとしたら、君が同行している時だけは猫をかぶるなんてことも考えられますね。
Well, Sanan-san offered me a wry smile, pushing me gently with a harmless outstretched palm.
さあ、豚舎に戻ってください。あなたに何かあったら、留守を任された意味がありませんから。
Without waiting to hear my response, Sanan-san spun on his heel and ambled down the dimly lit road. Wait, so you really think it was him? I refuse to give in. I'm going to find Sanan again, and I'll prove to everyone how innocent he is.
Oi! Mateo, Chizuru!
Heisuke shouted at the top of his lungs as I bolted away from him back into the city, ignoring his pleas. As I traveled down the main road, my eyes searched every street corner and izakaya for a trace of Sanan-san. Sanan-san, where are you? As I poked my head into a yawn. As I poked my head into a narrow, cramped alley, I noticed something that made me freeze. An ominous pair of piercing crimson eyes flashed in the thick darkness. I realized too late to whom they could have belonged, and as I attempted to backtrack into the main road... everything went black. A dull ache rang like a bell in my chest, and my entire body felt white hot. No matter how much I tried, my eyes refused to open again. I think that was the quickest death we've had. What the fuck? Alright. Back to the records of service. Where we pick the snake again. And continue on with chapter 2, which is low romance and high corruption. That is your recipe. The abandonment of we can't have experiments. This is where we just start thinking of doing the experiments. That's right. I gazed at him fondly and decided to say, don't give up. Please, don't give up. Setbacks happen, and although we weren't able to find anything from my father's research notes, there has to be something in there that we could use. Maybe that's the key you've been looking for. Don't be too hard on yourself. Your research hasn't been fruitless. We've only just begun, really. I was afraid that he'd think I was being coy. But I couldn't bear to watch his stoic eyes drip with melancholia. Melancholia? Yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard that word. So I rambled off encouragement. Soon Sanan-san's lip curled into a thin, faint smile. Sanan-san muttered softly before shaking his head in trepidation. Oh no, wait, yes, wait, no, this actually is banned, wait. My brain doesn't remember the order of things. I guess it happens at the same time. Okay. Sanan-san pursed his lips, taking his teacup and gulping it in one sip. After he placed it down, I grabbed the cup and stood to begin my exit. Well, I suppose I'll be leaving now. Please have a pleasant evening, Sana. Just as I had turned my head over my shoulders towards his bedroom door, we make him endure it. A grotesque agony consumed Sanan-san, measured in thick beads of sweat, bloodshot eyes, and a pair of violently shaking hands. Are you okay, Sanan-san? As I attempted to comfort him, he stretched his hand out, stopping me from getting any closer. Yeah, that's not happening. But you're suffering, Sanan-san. Sanan-san! Sanan-san's body contorted from uncontrollable pain, and he began crawling at his own chest like a wolf into dirt. I watched in horror before wrapping my arms around him, as if I could absorb some of his pain into myself. My only solution was to restrain his lashing body, desperately hoping that his pain would soon subside. Moments of pause would lull me into a false comfort until the seizing would pick up in rhythm again. I took them as they came, however, continuing to hold him until his gnashed teeth loosened a bit. Yep, it is the alleyway. Hi! Upon seeing that, I chose to step back. I stepped behind Hijikata-san and Heisuke meekly, and they inched closer to Sanan-san with swords raised. They cautiously eyed him like a feral dog. It was a saddening performance, one that breathed life into the idea of the Shinsenguma's deterioration. Hijikata and Sanan-san traded hateful glares. An electrifying tension filled the air, making it nearly impossible for me to draw breath. In the blink of an eye, I saw someone dart forward, though it hadn't been whom I was expecting. The Ronin, who moments earlier was laying lifelessly, jumped up and slashed my body into ribbons. Everything was turning black. Even in my final moments, I was overcome with guilt. I'm sorry, Sanan-san. It shouldn't be like this. That was also a very quick game over. Whoa, okay. Alright, back to our snake boy. We're on to chapter 3, which is low romance, high corruption as your recipe. Oh, right, this one. Oh, this chapter. I remember this chapter. It's in my head. I bit my lip in hesitation, telling Sun, I don't know. What did I want to do? No one else had confronted me with the question, so I was too timid to answer the question off the cuff. Well, that I am unsure of. I suppose I'd only be able to decide if I spoke with him, and even then... Regardless if he's crossed or not, nothing is certain until I hear the words come from his mouth. Sun pursed her lips in contemplation, fiddling with her hands before addressing Kimikiku. And, of course, make him endure it. Sanan-san, please stop. Rage consumed Sanan-san, prompting him to pounce on the nearby remains of a dismembered soldier. Jeez! I did my best to restrain him, but there was little else I could do when the two of us were totally surrounded by what he had craved most. Against my better judgment, I kept myself from attempting other options, clinging to the hope that his sanity would remain intact. I was beginning to think my hesitation would cost Sanan-san, but no alternative seemed worth the risk. Sanan-san, have you joined my father? Sanan-san, are you and my father working together? Is this where you... God fucking damn A button! Sanan-san, are you and my father working together? Is this where you've been since you left? Sanan-san delivered his acerbic criticism coldly. leaving me with no rebuttal. How much of this is going to be skipped and where is... Never mind, I got to this part. I marveled at Hisuke's heroics, but the echo of his rousing declaration attracted the attention of Furies, who began to swarm around us gleefully. Hisuke against Sanan-san. Sen against Kaoru. Kimikiko against father. Everyone else was locked in a fierce duel, and I had been left to fend for myself. Yeah! With wild aplomb, I waved my kodachi at the mess of flurries, hoping to chomp at me viciously. But the furies bunched like moths to an open flame, appearing to be provoked by each of my frenzied swings, which weren't aimed at anyone in particular. It was a desperate play. I flinched as my kodachi connected with the outstretched forearm of an attacking fury as blood splurred onto my face. As Heisuke warned, however, their vigor was unmatched, and I soon felt overwhelmed. They clawed at me insistently, and before I knew it, one of the furies snatched my kodachi out of my hand. The fury's piercing scarlet gaze was pointed at me, along with the tip of my own kodachi. As the cold steel was driven into my heart, I felt an unimaginable searing pain, causing me to cry out in desperate agony without any chance to defend.
Yukimura-kun!
おい、羅刹やめろやめるんだ
やれやれ仕方ないこうなってはヤセの姫に代わりを務めてもらうか
As I collapsed to the floor, the fading sound of father's voice echoed in my ears. Oh, that was an ending. Now onto the bad ending for our snake boy. Alright. Low romance and high corruption is your recipe. It's like when you have a chip in a porcelain doll. That's what it reminds me of. A regretful frown covered Sanan-san's face, and I said, "Nothing is for certain. Nothing is for certain yet." I felt compelled to wrap my hands around Sanan-san's face and draw him in closer so that his eyes were inches from my own. Forget what my father said. We have no idea whether or not he was lying when he told you that Furies cannot become humans again. Are there other means you could experiment with?
それはそうですが
Then let's fight it until the very end. Until we verify the truth. You can't give up. Silence hovered between us, save for the sound of steam hissing from my teacup. As Sanan-san let my words sink, he bit his lips and hastily wrapped his hand around my arm. I gasped, and he spoke under his breath.
わかりませんね
Never mind, and we gotta make him endure it. As always. Veins bulged from Sanan-san's forehead, which was drenched in a coat of sweat, as he viciously clawed at his body. He ground his teeth in desperation. Sanan...
気にしないでくださいきっとこれは罰なのです羅刹でありながらあなたに心を奪われてしまった私への
A despondent frown curled on Sanan-san's lips, and he quickly averted his line of sight as his focus returned on the agonizing pain he was currently suffering. Sanan-san!
大丈夫か罰ですから私はこれに耐えなくては
My only choice of action was to embrace Sanan-san's body as he convulsed in front of me. Time to hit the skip button again.
君たちをすべて始末した上で、ゆっくりと元の身に戻る方法を探せばいいだけの話だ。
Father cackled to our dismay, and then put the glass vial to his lips, swallowing the serum in one gulp. Father unleashed a deafening roar, causing me to flinch as he charged towards Sanan-san. He attempted a jab, which was effortlessly parried by Sanan-san, but the latter suddenly stopped in his tracks. He looked up, wearing a panicked expression as he slowly tilted his head downwards. I realized at the same moment he did, and cupped my hands over my mouth in horror. His flesh began to wither to dust, like the burnt end of an incense.
どうやら寿命のようだね、三男君。それなら落ち水を飲むまでもなかったか。
My heart tightened in my chest. I attempted to sprint towards Sanan-san, hoping to hold him in my arms for his final moments, but as my body lunged forward frantically, I felt someone pull me back. Let go of me! It was Kaoru, rubbing salt in my emotional wounds by grabbing a hold of my arm with a sadistic grin. Of course it's Kaoru!
そんなんはもう終わりだよ。お前はこれから家族としてずっと俺と一緒に暮らすんだ。心配する必要はないよ。お前の世話は俺がしてやるから。もっとも毎日血を絞り取られる生き地獄のような日々だろうけどね。
Kaoru struck my neck with his palm, then gripped the back of it forcefully to cut off the circulation of blood. As he restricted my breath, I felt my vision blurring. Then, darkness. Game over. And now all that's left for our snake boy is the unrequited love. Let's see how this goes, because it was skipping all the way to the end. Records of service. Chapter 4. So we need low romance and low corruption. That is your recipe. Alright, so, yeah, things are... Nothing's for certain. And then... we give him blood. Alright, he's gonna drink that.
君たちをすべて始末した上で、ゆっくりと元の身に戻る方法を探せばいいだけの話だ。
Father cackled to our dismay, and then put the glass vial to his lips, swallowing the serum in one gulp. There he goes. Father's eyes shine malevolently as he pointed his fevering gaze over towards Sen. Oh no, that's different.
素晴らしい、この溢れる力。これなら相手がヤセの姫だろうと、西の鬼の棟梁だろうと負けるはずがない。
なら試してみなさい。
Damn, son!
なんて力なの。姫様、お下がりください。
The force of Father's shove blew Sen back several feet, and with his other hand he knocked Kimigiku with a swift punch to her chest. Like Sen mentioned, Father irradiated a terrifying energy, enhanced by his consumption of the serum. His muscles bulged from inside his kimono, and with a cool smack he blasted Sen and Kimigiku across the room. He puffed his chest sharply.
やはり私の研究は何一つ間違ってはいなかった。
He formed his lips into a satisfied smile before locking his hands together, charging up his latent energy. Sanan, however, was unafraid of Father's display. He merely stared back at Father, and there appeared to be a hint of sympathy twinkling in his eyes.
寿命を全うして死ねる機会すら失うと最後まで哀れな人だ。せめて私が楽にしてあげましょう。それが私にできる最後の慈悲です。
小作がいい。この道この私に勝てるはずもない。
As the two sprinted forward to clash into one another, sparks flew from the clang of their blades meeting. Father, at least visibly, was the stronger of the two. However, Father deflected each of the jabs aimed towards his abdomen by Father's scalpel.
力では勝っていてもあなたは剣の達人ではない。日々武士として強くなるために傷だらけになって稽古に明け暮れ何万回と素振りを繰り返しそうして培った武士の技をたかが薬を飲んだ程度で超えられるはずがないでしょう。
His muttered words fell death on Father's ears, who continued to swing with vicious aplomb. Finally, Sanan deflected an incoming slash, exposing Father's abdomen, and Sanan drove his blade into his opponent's heart.
バカだ。
Father lowered his guard, and Sanan peeked at Heisuke from his peripheral, watching his comrade easily subdue Kaoru and the rest of the rogue furies.
これで終わりです。コーラオさん。
そうだな。その通り。全くもって口惜しい話だ。
Sorry, Koda, I can't quite hear you over the music.
だがそんなんくん、終わりなのは私だけではない。君だろう。
What? No! Before I could realize what was happening, I rushed over to Sanan, whose face was awestruck. As I placed my hand softly on his shoulder, I felt it crumble, and soon his flesh began dissolving, like dust in the palm of my hand.
残念ですが、どうやら限界のようですね。
No! You can't die yet! There's still so much that we need to do! So much I have to tell you! My world was falling apart in front of me. I felt numb to my surroundings. Sanan turned into sand, melted into the ground. It was a harsh reality, and I was overcome with regret. I couldn't contain myself from crying, and soon a deluge of tears began streaming down my hot cheeks.
まさか私のためにこうして泣いてくれる人がいるとはね。それだけでここまで生き延びてきた意味があるというものです。
As the hushed words left Sanan's mouth, pieces of his body would begin to chip from the bottom up. His feet were little more than piles of ash, but his face, pale and serene, was perfectly intact. A tiny smile curled in his lips before he muttered,
雪村君、私のわがままですが、一つお願いがあります。
What? What is it?
どうか私のことを忘れてください。君にはまだ未来がある。この先も 生きていかなければなりません。だからどうか私のことは忘れ、別の幸せを見つけてください。
Is that what you want? Sanan. If I were to leave your memory behind, and there came a day where I found the heart of another, if that person wasn't you, would you really be okay with that?
いいんです。
Oh, that hurts! Sanan-san, please. This is our final moment together. I just want you to tell me how you feel about us. I couldn't help but quiver from sobbing. Sanan-san's breaths were pained and shallow, but he still managed to eke out a kind smile.
では、私の本当の願いを、私のことは忘れなさい。どうか早く、私のことは。
Before he could finish his sentence, the affliction moved to his face, and he disintegrated entirely. I stared blankly at the pile of ashes, and another agonizing wave of tears slid down my face. That's not fair! Sanan-san! I can't promise you that. I buckled and fell to my knees, clutching fistfuls of ashes in my hands and holding them against me. They spilled, like all things do, from my delicate hands. He was gone, carried along with the bitter wind. Okay, that one actually hurt me.